World War II submarine that went down in battle. The American families back here at home with so many questions. What a team of explorers just found.
Explorers have finally found the remains of the USS Grayback.
A single wrong number buried in a 1944 translation was enough to send generations searching across the wrong patch of ocean.
A World War II submarine missing for 75 years has been found off the coast of Japan.
For 75 years, families waited, sonar pinged, and the seafloor offered only silence. Then, one day in 2019, a robotic camera descended into the deep and finally found what human eyes had missed for decades. The vanishing of a legend. In the early months of 1944, the United States ship Grayback stood as one of the most formidable submarines in the Pacific theater. She had sailed from Pearl Harbor with quiet determination, armed with a crew of 80 men and a mission to intercept Japanese shipping in the East China Sea. For the sailors aboard, it was another patrol in a brutal high-stakes campaign beneath the waves. They understood the dangers, not in abstract terms, but in the everyday reality of sonar pings, pressure gauges, and long stretches of silence punctuated by sudden violence. On January 28th, the Grayback submerged beneath Hawaiian waters for what would become her final journey. Her 10th war patrol was, by all accounts, routine in objective but perilous in scope. Disable enemy supply lines, return safely. But she never returned. By March 7th, the date of her expected arrival, no radio contact had been made and no sighting had been reported. Submarines operated under strict radio silence, so this wasn't immediately alarming. It was only on March 30th, when no trace of the vessel emerged, that the United States Navy officially declared the United States ship Grayback lost. For the families of the crew, grief arrived not with a body, but with a telegram. The language was restrained, overdue and presumed lost, but the finality cut deep. There would be no funeral, no wreckage to confirm the unthinkable, just absence. Unlike surface ships, submarines that vanish leave nothing behind. No flotsam, no oil slick, no markers. They simply slip into the deep, swallowed whole by a silence no one can answer. Wartime assumptions. In the aftermath of the Grayback's disappearance, the United States Navy turned to wartime intelligence to piece together what had happened. Their search wasn't physical, it was archival. At the close of World War II, American analysts gained access to thousands of Japanese military documents, including combat reports, base logs, and pilot debriefings. Among them was a file dated February 27, 1944, from a Japanese naval aviator operating near Okinawa. His account detailed an attack on an American submarine spotted on the surface. He had dropped a 500-pound bomb and reported a direct hit. The submarine, he claimed, sank almost immediately. This report was taken seriously. It matched Grayback's last known area of operations, and the date aligned precisely with the presumed day of its loss. The Japanese pilot had also recorded exact coordinates, latitude, and longitude off the coast of Okinawa. With no alternative evidence and no survivors, United States officials concluded that the report explained Grayback's fate. The coordinates were entered into official naval histories. For decades, they shaped every map, every theory, and every attempt to locate the wreck. Yet, as underwater search capabilities improved in the 1970s and beyond, multiple expeditions ventured to the site specified by those coordinates and found nothing. Not a hull, not a debris field, just silt, current, and the absence of metal. Still, the Navy's conclusion remained largely unchallenged. After all, the paperwork aligned and the war had ended. It was easier to accept the Grayback's resting place as a mystery than to believe the records themselves might be wrong. The mistranslation. In 2018, a Japanese systems engineer named Yutaka Iwasaki was spending his evenings poring over original World War II records stored in Japanese military archives. Unlike most Western researchers, Iwasaki had access to the handwritten kanji, the primary source material that often went untranslated or was rendered into English decades earlier. A particular document caught his attention, The February 27th pilot report believed to describe the destruction of the United States ship Grayback. The coordinates in the report seemed at odds with those commonly cited in American naval history. Iwasaki cross-referenced the original log entry with post-war translations and noticed a simple, devastating error. The Japanese pilot had recorded the longitude as 128 degrees, 16 minutes east. But the American translation from 1946 had misread the character, recording it instead as 127 degrees, 16 minutes east. A single degree of longitude might not seem dramatic, but in that part of the Pacific, it represents roughly 100 miles of ocean. Every expedition that had followed the translated coordinates had been searching in the wrong place, led astray by misread digit. Iwasaki contacted Tim Taylor, an American ocean explorer and founder of the Lost 52 project, a mission to locate all 52 United States submarines lost in the Pacific during World War II. When Taylor reviewed Iwasaki's findings, the logic was undeniable. The translation error explained why decades of high-tech sonar surveys had turned up nothing. It wasn't that the Grayback didn't want to be found. It was that no one had been looking in the right place. With this new clue, the Lost 52 project reoriented its search. What followed would finally bring clarity to a mystery that had haunted families and historians for 3/4 of a century. The descent. In June 2019, the Lost 52 team embarked on a new expedition in the East China Sea, armed with the corrected coordinates that shifted the search area nearly 100 miles west. At their disposal was a fleet of autonomous underwater vehicles, sophisticated sonar-equipped drones capable of scanning the seafloor with precision. Unlike manned submersibles, these machines could endure hours in the deep, operating where no diver could survive. Their target lay at a depth of approximately 1,400 feet, a region known to oceanographers as the Midnight Zone. Down there, light does not reach. The water is near freezing and the pressure is immense, over 600 pounds per square inch. For human bodies, it is instantly fatal. For machines, it is a test of endurance and engineering. As the sonar drones fanned out, they painted acoustic maps of the seabed, scanning ridges, crevices, and shadows. Day after day, the process repeated. Deploy, scan, retrieve, analyze. Most returns showed only volcanic rock and natural formations. Then, on a calm day at sea, the sonar returned a signal that stood out. A distinct metallic contour shaped unmistakably like a submarine hull. The team deployed a remotely operated vehicle, or ROV, tethered to the ship and piloted in real time. As it descended, its lights cut through the darkness, illuminating the seabed until the shape of a conning tower emerged on screen. There she was, the United States ship Grayback, upright on her keel, her bow facing into the current. The moment was quiet. For the first time in 75 years, the silence had broken. Not with sound, but with sight. The sub was no longer missing. What the ocean preserved. When the ROV's floodlights revealed the full outline of the United States ship Grayback, the team expected ruin, twisted metal, a shattered hull, perhaps a debris field trailing across the seabed. What they found instead was something eerily intact. The submarine sat upright, largely preserved, her pressure hull remarkably whole after 7.5 decades in the deep. The conning tower bore unmistakable signs of trauma. A gaping hole in the aft section, its edges curled inward by a concussive force. This damage precisely matched the type and location of a 500-pound bomb strike, just as the 1944 Japanese pilot had described. One detail stood out among the external features. The deck gun was raised, its barrel elevated toward the sky. In standard operating procedure, submarines dove immediately when threatened by aircraft. But here, the configuration suggested the Grayback may have attempted to fight back on the surface, either because diving wasn't possible in time, or because her captain chose resistance over retreat. The dive planes were also set for descent, indicating the submarine had already begun submerging when the bomb struck. Importantly, the team did not explore the interior. As a declared war grave, the United States ship Grayback is protected by international maritime law and United States military regulation. Entering the hull would have risked violating that sanctity. No human remains were documented or disturbed, and no footage was released showing anything beyond external breaches. Speculation about crew positions or preservation conditions remains just that, speculation. What was clear, though, was that decades of rumors had dissolved. There was no hidden gold, no evidence of secret cargo, and no trace of supernatural events. The submarine had not disappeared mysteriously. It had been misplaced by a digit, hidden not by myth, but by human error. The meaning of closure. The discovery of the United States ship. Grayback brought with it a rare kind of resolution. Though no remains were recovered and none will be, the families of the 80 lost sailors were finally given something they had lived without for generations: a location. The coordinates were no longer speculative or ceremonial. They pointed to a place on Earth where their loved ones truly rested. The search had transformed from an unanswered question into a story with an ending, however painful. Tim Taylor and the crew aboard the research vessel held a memorial at sea above the wreck. The ceremony was simple, quiet, and deeply human. The names of each sailor were read aloud, followed by the solemn toll of a ship's bell. A wreath was released into the waves, drifting slowly above the wreckage nearly a quarter-mile below. No dramatic speeches were needed. The ocean itself seemed to absorb the gesture with reverence. For the first time, those who had waited decades knew where to direct their grief. Closure doesn't erase loss, but it does redefine its shape. In this case, it anchored sorrow to a specific place, grounding memory in geography. And while the submarine will never surface, its rediscovery allowed a generation of descendants to begin a new chapter, one rooted in truth rather than uncertainty. The ocean kept its silence for 75 years, not out of mystery, but because we were asking the wrong question in the wrong place. One digit was all it took to obscure a truth waiting just out of reach. Now that the Grayback is found, the deeper story comes into focus. How many others are still out there, lost to time and translation? If we can learn from one mistake, we may finally give voice to the rest. So, subscribe, stay curious, and keep searching, because some answers are still waiting beneath the waves.